Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Saturday, the 20th of September, 2025, day 1304 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv. Take two. We're having some, hey, Avi, we're having some problems, some technical problems. I'm hoping that we fixed it this time. Actually, Avi, there were 200 people in here a minute ago, but I had to shut it down because it was frozen and lagging for everybody. We had a strike on telecommunications infrastructure here in Kyiv a couple days ago. And since then, I've been unable to do my walking tour lives, like the connection just won't support it. And I'm hoping, I rebooted the router. I'm hoping that that'll give us the bandwidth we need to continue this. Hey, Daryl Roberts, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for helping me out with Sophia, man. I really appreciate it. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do for all the folks that did help with Sophia. I mean, certainly, hey, Maureen. Seems good now, Chrissy? Good. Good, Akron. Good to hear it. And so one of the things you'll undoubtedly hear from me in the videos that come from Sophia and from the travel, my thanks. Okay, there's Petey boy. Pete, let me check your status here. I saw your message. You're a moderator, pal. I don't know why you don't have moderator. You show up as a moderator to me. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Richard Prexis. Better Smokey? Good. Hey, Nightshade. Pugga Mahone is back. There's Julian Patel. Hey, Bernard. Doing better, everybody? So I guess the big story today is the Russian incursion into NATO airspace in Estonia. Now, from what I understand, the Russians crossed into Estonian airspace, circled around for about 12 minutes, when some Estonian F-35s, if I'm not mistaken, got scrambled. They hightailed it out of there. They were MiG-31s. Now, for anybody who follows this channel, you should know when we see MiG-31s in the air here in Kyiv, it's of real concern because the MiG-31 is the fighter bomber that carries the Kinzhal hypersonic missile. Very difficult to shoot down. Hey, Van. Very difficult to shoot down, very deadly results in its use here in Ukraine. So apparently these jets were armed with Kinzhal hypersonic missiles when they entered Estonian airspace. Now, this is just 1 week after Poland, right, where we saw 24 drones go into Poland. Now, those drones at least were not armed. Then we saw another drone, which may also have been unarmed. We don't know. We've had no official word on that drone, either its type or its armament or anything. Only that Saturday, a drone entered Romanian airspace and was escorted by Romanian F-16s for 50 minutes, nearly an hour, until it finally crossed out of Romanian airspace and back into Ukraine. Now, if that drone was armed, that's a big deal to me. To have that drone in your sights, violating your airspace, not shoot it down, and then let it return to Ukrainian airspace, potentially to murder Ukrainian civilians, is an act of supreme negligence. Now, we don't know if that was a drone or if they determined that it was unarmed. But boy, if they did, they should certainly say so. Because the idea that they let it just fly back into Ukraine to do whatever damage it did is obscene. obscene, especially when we are supposed to be living in a world where, according to the SACEUR and the Secretary General of NATO, Operation Eastern Flank is active. Eastern Sentry. Eastern Sentry is supposed to be basically a no-fly zone 75 kilometers inside of NATO airspace from the borders to Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. From Finland, Sweden, the Baltics, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, all the way down the chain. That's what's supposed to be the case. Estonia has invoked Article 4, as some people have mentioned in the chat. Article 4, again, is consultation with allies to come up with a plan of action, a unified response in the face of a threat. I would point out that this is only the 9th time in NATO's history that Article 4 has been invoked. So, Akron, that's the question, right? Should NATO have shot them down today? Is the cost of taking action less than the cost of an hour-long air escort? Well, certainly that's the case. But should they have shot them down today? Is it better that cooler heads have prevailed? What would have happened if they shot them down? We don't know. Would the same thing happen that happened in Turkey back in 2015? A Russian Sukhoi in active air operations in Syria crossed the line into Turkish airspace, and the Turks shot it down. In the next 10 years of ongoing conflict in Syria, no Russian jet ever strayed into Turkish airspace again. So if NATO had shot them down today, would that have been the end of these incursions? Or are we glad that calmer heads have prevailed? And the reason that I ask that question, because of course, look, it's easy for us sitting at home to say, oh, they should have shot those jets down. Oh, they should do something. Should they? I don't know. Hey, good morning, Tomorrow. It's nice that Tomorrow's here. The Australians are here. Here's my concern. A guy by the name of Bandera Boss, I think is the TikTok handle he uses, Bandera Boss. And one other person and I were chatting in the comments of the video on Estonia today. And those guys both think that Russia is intentionally trying to bring NATO into the war because Russia knows it has lost, and they want to be able to save face with their own people and say, we lost to NATO, not to Ukraine, not to little Ukraine. Now, that might be. I don't know. I don't know what's in the head of the Kremlin, right? And I see other people are agreeing down there. But I'll tell you something. From what I have seen of the Russian psyche in the last 3.5 years, is that is not how the Russians think. It's just not how the Russians think. The Russians think of themselves as indomitable, indefeatable. And as long as they have weapons in their toolkit, I think they want to use them. And so my concern, are the Russians baiting NATO? Eddie, I kind of agree with you there, pal. Is it more likely then that Russia is baiting NATO in order to get NATO to attack Russia so that Russia can pull out the N-word, right? Like Homer Simpson said, it's pronounced nuclear. Is Russia so desperate at this point that what they're looking for is a casus belli to escalate to thermonuclear war? And I don't know the answer to that question. The Russians have a very perverse view of the world, boy. The Russian view of the world does not look anything like yours and my view of the world. It is skewed in ways that we cannot grasp. These people have a standard of living that's less than Mexico for the vast majority of the purportedly 140 Russians that there are, right? And yet, if you ask them about their country, they think they're up here, right? The perception of the average Russian is that Russia is the height of all civilization, that they are richer than everyone else, even though 20% of the country doesn't have a toilet in the house. They think that they are the penultimate culture, that they are the penultimate science, that they are right, that they are the ultimate in the world. And you compare that to the world's perception of Russia, where Russia ranks last in reputation in the world. So do they think that they, mighty Russia, West weak and depraved, that if NATO attacks and they respond with an escalatory response, that the West will be too weak to respond in similar fashion? That seems far more likely. Thanks, Van. That seems far more likely to me than the idea that the Russians are looking to blame NATO for their failures and that they're looking for a reason to surrender. That does not seem like the Russian at all, you know. What did that guy say in The Hunt for Red October? Your average Rusky don't take a shit, son, without a plan. And thanks, Paul. These guys do some good work here in Ukraine, Spirit of Ukraine Foundation. Actually, some representatives of this group are going to be in town in a couple weeks, and I'm looking forward to meeting with them. So look, now see, Cheshire Cheese, that is not an impossibility either, right? And those guys mentioned that when we were having this conversation, that they want to draw NATO in so that they can turn to their Iranian, Chinese, and North Korean allies and say, we need your help in this, and bring them in, you know? I want to live in Montana. Will they let me live in Montana? I would think you could live wherever you liked. I can't do the Scottish accent. You're right, Raven. It was dump. You're right. Good call. That's a good call. Okay. Now, yeah, Maria, we've had some problems here in Kyiv lately. So look, I don't know why the Russians are doing what I think is something insane, risking bringing NATO into the war, risking their pilots, their jets, etc. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't pretend to know. But it is very disconcerting. And it is particularly disconcerting to see this second incursion into NATO airspace since Poland and since the activation of Operation Eastern Sentry. That is very disconcerting. Now, the good news, of course, is that on the ground, oh no, the USA will not get involved. The USA cannot be counted on. The Russians, Vladimir Putin's greatest win, greatest achievement was in getting Donald Trump reelected and getting him to subvert the U.S. federal system of government in favor of his authoritarian desires, to divide the American people against themselves. Because everybody knows you can't take out America from the outside. The only way to take out America is from the inside. And the goddamn Russians put 40 years into it, Make no mistake. They invested 40 years in Donald J. Trump to take out the United States. And that's another reason why I can't believe that they're trying to draw NATO in so that they can say, "Oh, we were beaten by NATO." No, a Russian doesn't think he's ever beaten. Never. Never. They are convinced that they have to win because the USA is sidelined. The USA is sidelined, too busy with its own internal bullshit, its own hatred, stupidity, and racism, which is just baked into the culture of my people. Let's face facts. Don't even get me started on Jimmy Kimmel. I canceled Disney Plus last night. If you are an American, or if you have Disney, Hulu, ESPN Sports, any of those franchises owned by Disney, I encourage you to cancel your subscriptions to those platforms. And when they ask you why, tell them, of course, because of Jimmy Kimmel. And I would put Jimmy Kimmel in the form, otherwise the AI might miss it, right? Hey, Seawolf. Well, America's certainly not bankrupt. I mean, America's still one of the richest countries in the world. But Trump is doing his level best to bankrupt us. You can make no mistake about that. But he's not healthy. He's not well. There's no telling how long we'll have to put up with his shit. Okay. So I do have something I want to say to the Russians that are here. Because, of course, every night there are Russians in here. We know you're here. You know we know. Everybody knows you're here, right? And it's funny. I'll tell you a story. I was chatting with one of the Russian trolls in... I was chatting with one of the Russian trolls in the comments on one of my videos. And the guy said to me, "We love you, Uncle Peter." I don't know who started calling me Uncle Peter, but I like it. I'm not opposed to it. And I said, "Who's that?" Everybody at, and then I gave the address of the bot farm I thought he was at, right? And that shut him right up, boy. He didn't have any response after that. So what I want to say to any Russian disinformation specialists, I think is how your business cards read these days. There is a new portal on the dark web called Silent Courier that the British MOD has opened. Now, I used to refer everybody to the CIA's portal on the dark web. I no longer do that. Now that Donald Trump is subverting U.S. federal system of government, I do not direct foreign agents to the CIA portal on the dark web any longer. But the UK has opened one called Silent Courier. Now look, guys, the fact is for you, your lives are about to be over. Russia's gonna collapse in on itself in an orgy of violence, the likes of which the world has rarely seen. You want to have a plan to get out. And the plan to get out is simple. Get Western intelligence the information we need to prosecute Russians for the war crimes in Ukraine and for other acts of sabotage against the United States of America and our allies. That's all it takes. That's your golden ticket out of the dystopian, post-apocalyptic nightmare that is about to rip the Russian Federation to shreds. And you're all guilty of crimes because you're part of the disinformation machine. So you want to start getting your golden parachute ready. If you're working at number 55 especially, get your golden parachute ready. Get some evidence to the UK portal on the dark web, securely, privately. Silent Courier. Silent courier. That's what you're looking for. Okay. Jimbo Jones wants to know what the timeline on this meltdown is. We don't know, Jimbo, except we know when the Russians think it's going to happen. How do we know when the Russians think it's going to happen? Because the Duma just changed the law to allow the FSB to have private pre-trial detention facilities with no government oversight. So they have now given the FSB permission to have their own private prisons with no oversight, no, like, you know how in the US, oh, we can only hold you for 24 hours without pressing charges. No. There will be no time limit on how long people can be locked up. The Russians are planning to silence mass protests, mass arrests, mass detentions. They are ramping up current prisons, which have been emptied of their prisoners because they've been sent to Ukraine. Right at the start of this war, Russia had 466,000 people in prison. Today, it's hovering around 200,000. Estimates vary, like between 195 and 226 is what I've seen. Where did the other 200,000 plus people go? You know where they went. So this is coming. The Russians know it's coming. And they're preparing for it with the resources to handle mass arrests and mass processing of the arrested, to silence dissent, to perform mass arrests at protests. The protests are coming. Look at in shoot. I apologize. The Russian names are hard for me. But there's an oblast just east of Krasnodar. Sevastopol or something like that. Fully half of all gas stations are closed because they have no fuel. In Nizhny Novgorod, lines, right, which is right by Moscow, right? It's right up that way. Lines for fuel are now running 8 to 10 hours, if you can get fuel at all. Coupons, rationing, long lines, all of the things that we experienced in the West in the 1970s are happening now in this gas station with nukes that's cosplaying as a country. The two things they're supposed to have, and they don't have gas. Hey, Marius. The United States has already begun mass incarcerations. They've already built several concentration camps, and they are mass incarcerating anybody who's not the right color. And it breaks my heart and makes me angry. You cannot imagine how it angers me to see this happening in my country. Sverdlovsk? That doesn't sound right, Julian. It's very much like Sevastopol, but it's not Sevastopol. It's something like that. In terms, no gas and nukes that don't work. Well, Paul, we're not so sure about the nukes don't work, right, pal? Now, when you look at the nuclear arsenals of the United States and the former Soviet Union, Russia, they're about comparable in size. And yet, Russia spends $1 on maintenance for every $5 that the United States spends. The consensus among most analysts in this area is that they have not been maintained, Drain Man, and the tactical part of the stockpile. Stavropol, Integral. Thank you, Stavropol. Yes, that's it. In Stavropol, Krai, half of the gas stations are closed because they have no gas. Thank you. Okay, so there's two parts to your nuclear stockpile, right? The smaller 4 to 10 kiloton devices, the tactical nukes, and then the big strategic intercontinental ballistic missiles in the megaton range. As I understand it, the thinking among most analysts that understand these things is that none of the tactical stockpile works. In fact, we saw the Russians screwing the warheads off of those tactical nukes a couple of years ago now. I want to say the first winter, like winter of 2022, 2023. They were screwing the warheads off those tactical nukes and lobbing the empty missile casings into Ukraine in an effort to overwhelm air defenses so that the real missiles could get through. And so the common thinking is that none of the tactical nukes work at all. And that's about 1/3 of the stockpile. The problem is that still leaves 4,000 nuclear devices that could work. And we just don't know. Tritium's very expensive, right? It's like $30,000 a gram. And you need about 2 grams every year after the first initial infusion in order to keep the fissile triggers working, as I understand it. What about Belarus? That's a great question. We saw the Russians violate the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty when they purportedly moved nukes into Belarus. Does Vladimir Putin strike anybody here as the kind of guy who's going to give his neighbor a nuclear capability? Right, Cheshire's cheese? Sounds like a scare tactic to me. I just can't imagine. I mean, Vladimir Putin doesn't want to sit next to anybody. I cannot imagine him moving missiles into Belarus. And then the people who believe it say, well, no, because the missiles in Belarus are still under Russian control. Okay, fine. You sent, let's say, 100 guys to provide security. You're in somebody else's country. You don't think that they can take out 100 guys and take those nukes from you if they want? Right, Colin? That guy doesn't trust anybody. So, I mean, they claim that they sent nukes there. I find it very hard to believe, personally. I'm very suspicious of it. The only thing that would make sense to me is if Russia intended Belarus to perform the nuclear strike so that Moscow had plausible deniability. That's the only circumstance under which I can imagine Vladimir Putin sharing the power of the atom with anybody else. Jarno there thinks Belarusian nukes are empty decoys. You're probably right, pal. Oh yeah, Nightshade, who was this one? Oil company, gas company, transport company. So guys, it's Friday. You can ask me anything on Friday. If anybody's got any questions, chat them in. I will happily answer them as best I can. Again, big thanks to Derek Sands, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group. And, of course, to the moderators, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, when they show up. See, Seawolf, I'm not so sure that that's true. Seawolf is saying that if a missile flies from Belarus, Moscow is vaporized in 15 minutes. Well, first of all, as far as I know, the fastest response time is 42 minutes, but that's okay. Let's not dwell on that, right? I get the point. However, the response from the SACEUR and from Biden's defense minister would lead one to believe that the West's initial response to a single nuclear device being launched would be a conventional response. That the West doesn't feel like it would need to respond kind for kind because it can respond conventionally and destroy Russia. That's why. Tell us about Sofia. Well, I haven't been yet. I don't leave until Monday. But look next week. You'll see a bunch of videos from Sofia and updates from Sofia Scully. I'll be in Sofia all next week. Pingu, I did not see that. The first bigger Russian bank went bankrupt this week. Well, that's a domino to watch. There will be more. Thanks, Akron. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Marty. Happy birthday, Tycho. Everybody wish Tycho a happy birthday. Any website restrictions in Ukraine? Russian websites. I got to use a VPN to get to Russian websites. Most of Russia is you can't get there. Like those reports that I used to do. I haven't done one lately. But the Russian Ministry of Finance used to publish all this data about how the economy was doing. Well, they've stopped publishing it. So it used to be I'd go to the Russian Ministry of Finance website, but I'd always have to use the VPN because I couldn't get there from here. That's the only kind of thing here. Hey, Lou. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company associated with Rosatom. Rosatom is the nuclear energy agency or nuclear energy company inside of Russia that maintains most of the nuclear power plants. Well, Cheshire Cheese, I don't know that I have a working theory of why they keep making these incursions. Except, I mean, at a tactical level, right? Like, let's forget about this strategic stuff about winning or losing the war. Forget about that. Tactically, why would you do it? Well, you do it to make the NATO countries and European countries afraid, and you get them to spend their money on their own air defense, their own airplanes, their own air defenses, etc., and stop sending it to Ukraine. See, I think that's much more in line with the Russian mindset. They believe that they can intimidate the West because the West is weak, make the West afraid of Russia. Ukraine will not then get the air defense assets that they could share with Ukraine. And then Ukraine, it'll be an easy walk to Kyiv if we can just get Europe to stop sending them weapons. I think that's probably more likely. But I don't know. I mean, there is certainly, as Julian points out, a psychological element to this warfare, to this kind of warfare. How many lives have been lost on each side so far? Way too many. Way too many. We don't have a good number. We don't have a good estimate of the number of civilians unalived in the temporarily occupied territories during all this time. We don't know. that number could be in the hundreds of thousands. I think the official number of Ukrainian losses is about 70,000, just unalived, right? KIA. While the number for the Russians is probably somewhere between 250 and 350,000 KIA. Right, Jeff? Why aren't the Russians publishing that financial data anymore? Because they're cooking the books, bro. They're cooking the books bad. And see, that's why I think on the subject of how long before the meltdown comes, I think it's going to be December. The Russians have a history, and not just because of the FSB pretrial detention center thing, but because the Russians have a long established habit of hiding financial losses until the December reconciliation. And then all of a sudden, all the losses come out. Remember when Gazprom had its first loss in 25 years, $7 billion for the year? Well, right up until the end of the third quarter, in early October of 2023, they were saying, we made $9 billion this year. And then somehow in the next 3 months, they managed to lose all the money they made, claim they made, and then lose another $7 billion. They hide the losses until January, and then it all comes out. So without extraordinary actions on the part of the Russian central bank, I don't see how they get into January. I don't see it. We'll see. Trump is proposing to stop the requirement for quarterly reporting. Of course he is. Whatever the Russians have done, it's their playbook he's following. Yeah, Steve, that's a popular theory. It just doesn't jive with Russian psychology to me. Or what I understand about it, right? Like, I am not an expert. I don't know. Could Latvia have shot the fighter jets down in the 12 minutes? Estonia, right? They were in Estonian airspace, so it would be Estonians. It would be Estonians that would be shooting them down. I believe that they could have, yes. Because they are said to have intercepted them and escorted them out of the airspace. Julian, I couldn't agree more. This has been our great failure. This is how we got where we are. We have failed to take Russian and Soviet psychological warfare and disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation seriously. So Pingu is saying there, and I think Nightshade said the same, Russia has lost about 1.1 million men. It will actually, when today's numbers are calculated, it will actually hit 1.1 million. KIA, WIA, POW, and MIA. What do you make of the letter the 12 diplomats in Russia sent to Putin? Nicola, we got that, right? How did we get that? We got that through some kind of leak, right? It's awfully hard to tell with the Russians, boy. They might have staged that in an effort to root out internal elements that are in favor of capitulation. There are definitely purges happening inside Russia right now. The Russians are going after every voice of dissent. Kozak, who was Putin's chief of staff, who was born in Soviet Ukraine, and who was a vocally in opposition to the war, and has since been urging Putin to make serious negotiations. was just forced to resign. So anybody who thinks that Putin is serious about ending the war is not paying attention. He is purging out of his own cabinet those that would dare to suggest he humble himself to talk to the Ukrainians. So that's hard to say. You know, the validity of the letter is in question, in my opinion. Chester's Cheese, you wish. All the missing husbands and sons must be demoralizing their society. There is a cottage industry of how to marry a volunteer to the SMO and collect his benefits. Widows and orphans are living high on the hog, suddenly rich because of the death benefits and sign-up bonuses. They think their lives have improved. So many of them. Now, that's not going to be the case universally. Of course, there are grieving widows, grieving mothers. But boy, the Russians are tough. There is not a lot of sentimentality in those people. Husbands are a commodity. Exactly. Renvox, that's the problem. In an autocracy like Putin's Russia, there is no number 2 or 3. Dear leader will live forever. He will always be with us. We will know no other. And anybody who's in any way competent or popular or poses a threat to him is disappeared, detained, or dispatched. So when he's gone, and he will be gone, it is no secret to anybody here, he is not immortal. And attempts to make him immortal will eventually be seen through. There will be a power vacuum. There will be a power vacuum. It's all they know. Just think there's an entire generation of Russians who have grown up never knowing anybody else in charge but dear leader. What happens when injured, demoralized soldiers return to Russia? Lou, that's what Putin fears the most, right there. He cannot stop the war because he cannot have 700,000 disenfranchised, dissatisfied, violent, armed, battle-hardened troops back in the society. Russia won't survive it. He knows it. So he needs them all to die in Ukraine. He has really created a bad situation for himself. There's no off-ramp here. He's got no plan. He's got no off-ramp. And let's be honest, the Russian people don't take failure very well. They are likely to tear him apart like a Labrador puppy with a new teddy bear. What else? Anything else? So guys, it's just about 7 minutes to the top of the hour. Again, let me thank Derek Sands, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Derek. Really appreciate it. Big thank yous to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and to Lars, who has the Discord server, as well as to the moderators. Thank you, guys. Putin's never going to get... Look, nobody would like to see Putin in The Hague more than me. He's never getting out of Russia alive. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Akron. Thanks, Bernard. I think you're right, Raven. He's not really the force anymore. The idea of him is the force. I hope we have a peaceful night too. I could use some sleep. Cheers, Renvox. Happy birthday, Tycho. Monday from Warsaw. Right, there's no, I just couldn't do the 47 hours on the bus to Sofia. So I'm doing 12 hours on the bus to Warsaw, and then on Tuesday I take a flight to Sofia. Thanks, Ted. Hey, Ted. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, Warsaw's okay. They have an English bookshop there that I like to go to. Thanks, Van. Definitely walking tours from Sofia. Maybe we'll do a walking tour from Warsaw too on Tuesday. But definitely, I want to get out and walk a little bit in Sofia and try to get a feel for the city. I've never been in Bulgaria before and am unlikely to ever return. So let's try to make the most of it. Now, mostly during the day, I'll be in the conference. The conference time goes from like pretty much from noon to 11 o'clock at night every day. So I'll still be live at night. And maybe during the day I can get out for a walk every once in a while. Do I worry about my safety? What do I care? What do I care? Do I worry about my safety? I don't care. My son is grown. I did the best I could with him. God bless him. Good luck. There is a train to Poland. The problem, Renvox, is that they don't put the seats up for sale until 3 weeks before. So you have to buy them immediately. They're very hard to get. And the bus is just more convenient and faster. I can get an express bus. I'm only on it 13 hours. And that's about the shortest you can do it in. Avi, are you in Albania? Dude, I want to go to Albania. I want to swim in the Adriatic. In Manhattan, I used to work for a company where the whole reception staff was Albanian, right? Like this one girl got hired there and then she just got her friends hired one after another. We had the most gorgeous reception staff in all of Midtown Manhattan, I swear to God. Some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen come from Albania. So yeah, dude, I'd like to do that sometime. Thanks, Cake Boy and Banjo. I hear it's good food. Azerbaijan and Albania. Yeah, and I've been pronouncing it wrong all this time, right? I've been saying Azerbaijan and Armenia. Little did I know that it was really Azerbaijan and Albania. Ugh, it's so embarrassing being an American. Oh, sorry. Pingu gets it. Renvox gets it. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Yeah, so a lot of travel coming up here. I don't know, the safety question, do I worry about my safety? Look, we're in a war zone, right? Like, you don't come here if you're not willing to take on responsibility for the risk of being here. And then if you mean by my safety, like, am I worried about Russians coming after me? No. I'm nobody. I'm not important enough. Nobody's going to waste their time coming after me, in my opinion. Oh, Smokey, it's ridiculous. I mean, the Ukrainians love Americans. It's embarrassing. You know, you meet somebody and they immediately know you're American, and then it's like, oh, thank you for everything you've done. Please, stop. It's very hard. Would be pretty cool if they sent a missile for you. I mean, if they wanted to find out where I live, it would not be hard to do. The good news, Van, is if they try to send a missile at my apartment place, I feel confident I'll be safer than if they tried to send it to another target, given their actual interception or actual, success rate. That would be great. If they were programming missiles for me every night, I'd sleep like a baby, knowing that I'm safe and sound. They did take that French bicyclist, though. I don't know anything about a French bicyclist. Subscriptions would go up. Avi, before I came here, I was living in my home state of Pennsylvania in the United States, in my little apartment overlooking... Oh, there's birds on my head. I feel like Cinderella. My little apartment overlooking Lake Erie in Erie, Pennsylvania. Lake Erie is one of the Great Lakes, and, that's where I was. I was in PA. My snoring would mess up their GPS, probably. That's probably true. Invite General Kellogg. He is better than a patriot, isn't he? Jeff Robbins, whose number are you getting? What is this about? Russians took a French bicyclist last month. He was making a record trip. Russians took a French bicyclist last month. I missed that story, Maddie. I don't know what that's about. Oh. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't see anything on that today about an earthquake yesterday. I meant to look that up, but I forgot. Drain, man, with the way that things are going, I could be kicked off TikTok tomorrow. So that's why everybody should join my Patreon. You can get a free membership there, right? And that way, if I do get kicked off TikTok, which seems kind of inevitable, I don't intend to leave the country before the Russians. My goal is a pig roast on a Crimean beach that you are all invited to. Oh, I feel pretty, thanks. Okay. Supposedly is the key word there, Maddie. Yeah. All right, kids, I'm going to call it a... Damn right, Seawolf. Yes. We'll save him some cheek meat. That's the good stuff. All right, kids, I'm going to call it a night. Again, thanks to Derek Sands and everybody who has been so helpful with Sophia. I feel really good about it now. I feel confident. If anybody wants to just give me a little cushion, the PayPal is in the description and it's appreciated. We will see everybody Monday from Warsaw and then the rest of the week from Sofia. So thanks, everybody. Make it a great day. Take care.